Hi everyone, welcome to this afternoon's webinar. My name is Nastassia Arendse. Today we're going to be looking at the results that came out of Firejuice's SME marketing survey, and we're going to be getting into those results and dissecting what all of that means with the founder of Firejuice, Jansen. He's going to be taking us through why small business owners need to plan through their research. He's going to share some recommended strategies for business owners who are planning to increase marketing spend in the coming months. Just so we get into what some of these stats are saying, so you can think about it as Bernard starts his conversation. For instance, the one that basically stuck out for me says 87% of small businesses profiled by marketing agency Firejuice says that they spend money on marketing, yet 37% are able to keep track of their results. Another one says that 90% of those surveyed plan to do marketing in the next coming months, yet 56% don't have a documented plan. So we're going to get into some discussion as to why that is the case and how we can change that. So Bernard, thank you so much for your time.
No, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
This is a very interesting, survey that you've put together. I mean, I found it quite interesting. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen just so that everybody can have a look at what this survey is saying. I don't know if anyone can see my screen. Bernard, can you see it?
There we go.
Great. So these are just some of the stats that I was just, sharing. The one with the 87%, the one that also looks at the 37%. But let's get into it. Why did you and your team decide to, embark on such a survey?
Well, a bit of background here. I'm a marketing consultant, and I have my assistant, Mashuayu, is a marketing project manager, and we really focus on the SME sector. And when I say that, I mean anything from a one-person startup, kind of a garage business, all the way through to businesses that do a substantial amount of money, but they're not yet listed on the stock market. They could be doing 500 million a year. So that's really our spectrum of businesses. And these companies battle with marketing, and we know that because we work with them on a daily basis. They don't understand where marketing fits into their business development plans, how to spend money on it, where to spend money. And, I've been running Firejuice since 2013, but 2-3 years ago, I decided, let me put a survey out and see how do business owners do marketing? What are the stuff, not just what do they do, but what is it that they battle with? And this is now actually the second iteration of this research that we've done. So that's a bit of background and why we're doing it. And I think that there's actually a huge gap in the market for some really insightful thinking around how small and medium-sized businesses approach marketing strategically.
Right. You mentioned this is the second iteration of the survey. Is it getting better, or is it getting worse out there when it comes to, businesses being able to understand, the importance of marketing and basically know what to do with it?
Yeah. Well, being the second one, it's still early days to do a trend analysis. Yeah. And I must tell you, I made a few changes to how I phrased the question. So the ideal is now to keep it up, and actually the next one being quite similar to this one. But the short answer is no. Business owners, entrepreneurs, they are battling with this idea of how to invest in marketing and doing it in a way where on the one hand they can see results, but on the other hand they can limit their investment to not be, it's easy to say to someone, spend more, and then you'll see more results. It's much more difficult saying to somebody, let's spend a little bit. Let's try and see if there is some impact, if there are some results, and then slowly scale it. So that's a much more tricky thing, and very few people really know how to do that, and how to do that in a manner that they can see results. So my findings are, over the years, it's remained an enigma. This idea of doing marketing for your business. There is a trend, and maybe we'll chat about that a little later, that's been quite evident, and that's over the last 5 or 6 months. Businesses have said, oh no, we have to really think about how we do marketing, because our salespeople can't be our only source of income anymore. They are now in lockdown. They can't go and see clients anymore. Clients are themselves sitting at home. So there has been a very recent trend where many businesses have said, shucks, we really need to be thinking about how we do marketing.
Right. So let's get into some of these findings. So, the first one says 87% of businesses spend money on marketing. And it's actually quite interesting to see that breakdown of 51% saying sometimes we spend money, 36% saying every month, and 13% says no. But just right next to it, what's very interesting is 37% keep track of their results. And, looking at that breakdown, that's also quite interesting. 22% saying no, we don't keep track. 37 are doing it regularly, and 41 are saying sometimes. So when it comes to keeping track of your results, is it a case where it all goes back to the drawing board, all goes back to the strategy as of what it is you were intending to achieve with your marketing campaign?
Yeah, you see, that's well put. I mean, going back to basics is actually a theme here. You can't just, what does the 87% number tell us? The 87% number tells us that everybody kind of knows they must do marketing. It's the funniest thing. People are very critical of marketing and what the results of marketing is or are, but there's no doubt, everybody knows they should do marketing. Marketing is a 100-year-old science. Marketing started in the early 1920s with ideas around how to sell colas and shoe polish and stuff. So the idea of doing marketing is accepted. Everybody knows they should do marketing. Everybody understands this idea that you kind of have to pay for it if you want to do it. So that's what the 87 numbers say. That says, and whether you have money or not often dictates whether you do it sometimes or every month. But everybody knows that they must do marketing of their business. The trick comes in when you now look at the next number, which says only 37% keep track of what they're doing. And that tells you, that starts to tie into the real issue here. The real issue is that people are not strategic with how they do marketing. You can only track something when you've actually sat down and you've asked yourself, now, what's my objective here? What am I trying to achieve? How do I know if I'm successful by the end of this week, by the end of this day, by the end of this week, end of this month, weekend, whatever? Those are strategic questions. Now, this idea of strategy gets thrown around a lot. People are talking, you need a strategy and strategies. What does strategy mean? Strategy means you know where you're going to focus and you know how you're going to measure your impact.
Right.
Focus and impact is really the two pillars of strategy. And what the 37 says is people are they're not really confident about this thing of tracking what they're doing. And that means they haven't really set clear objectives, which really points to this idea of not really having a strategy.
When it comes to that tracking, if you know that you don't have the team within your company to help you do that, like a marketing team that may necessarily know what's happening out there and, and how to do the trends, is it worthwhile having people come and help you? Like, how do you build up that team to help you keep track of your results?
Well, let's take a very simple example. Everybody is, kind of understands that social media should be a part of their marketing activity or their marketing mix. Okay. So if I'm a business owner and I understand, I'm working with a business owner at the moment who runs a sizable business, and the business has been around for decades. He is not yet on LinkedIn. Okay, now he's heard in the background that LinkedIn is something that he should use. Now, what should he do is essentially your question. If he doesn't know how to use the platform, what to do now? Short of saying yes, you get an outside expert in. that's a challenging thing, because if you phone the nearest social media agency, this is the big issue for many business. A business owner wants to make a business-driven decision. He wants to make a decision, or she, that really makes business sense. And very few, I'm not saying all of them, but very few agency types understand how to talk business, how to make marketing, how to tie marketing into a business decision. So you can phone a social media agency and they will say to you, yes, you must be on LinkedIn. Yes, you must do promoted posts. Yes, you must be on there every week. You need a content calendar. You need this, you need that. Join the conversation, use the right hashtags, etc. That though is not, it's not advice that a business owner can take and say, oh, I understand how this is going to add to my sales pipeline, how it's going to drive awareness with the right audience, how it is going to impact my bottom line, and how I'm going to be able to sustain this effort, because no one wants to be on and then off and then their brand takes a knock. So yes, get outside advice, but make sure you get strategic outside advice. Make sure you get advice that is where somebody can say to you, and that's often, I'm a classical marketer that tries to tie in what your customer and your competitor and your company and your brand message and all of those things are about. And that's what you need to look for, a strategic marketer. To come and advise you, to come and work with you over a period of time and really help you get your head around how marketing should work for you in your business.
Right. So then we get to the next one that says 90% plan to do marketing in the coming months. And I can imagine that is encouraging, but 56% don't have a documented plan.
There you go. Same issue. There's no strategic thinking. It's just people are throwing money at marketing and they don't know what they're doing, why they're doing it. How. It's very messy and frustrating actually for me.
So that documented marketing plan, does that go back to the strategy you were talking about? And if so, what is a documented marketing plan? Like if I came to you, Bernard, and I said, I want to spend, money on marketing my business, what should I be bringing to you, or what can you help me put together as a worthwhile marketing plan?
Well, the marketing plan, great question. I mean, what is a marketing plan? It sounds like a boring thing, but ultimately, what is marketing? Marketing is part of a sales process. Marketing is it's not a fluffy, pretty pictures thing. Marketing is a way of making your sales process much more efficient, much more effective. You can have 5 or 10 people driving around town, working the phone, and they can only reach so many people in a day and make so many sales per week. Or you can bolt on a marketing element. Now suddenly you can reach many more. You can be much more efficient. You can get your salespeople to pick up the sales process when someone has already heard of you and has already understood what you're about. So what is a marketing plan? Marketing plan is not far short of a sales plan that says, listen, what do we as a business offer the customer? What is our value proposition? And if you start thinking about value propositions, you think, what makes us different? What makes us the same? Where are our weaknesses? So having clarity around what is our value proposition? Who are we offering this value proposition to? That is your target market and your customer profile. So being very clear about that. I had a guy saying to me earlier this week, Bernard, this is again a business owner who said to me, Bernard, I've got my new online educational platform ready. It's ready to go. Okay, this guy has taken his entire business online because of COVID. He said to me, he's ready to run with it now. I said to him, great, let me have a look at this website. Well done, pretty stuff. but it's just generic. I said to him, who are you targeting this to? Who must see relevance in this? His answer was everybody. That is what a marketing plan will say to you, you know, if you want to market to everybody, you're going to be very ineffective.
Yeah.
Who do you want to market to? What do you want to tell them? How are you going to see if they are responding to what you tell them? So what are your key measures here? And then how are you tracking that and refining it? And so everybody needs to, even if it's on a one page, have a plan on how they're going to approach marketing.
Which, you know, takes me quite nicely into the next part of the discussion, where we look at which of the following marketing channels have been used in the past year. And it's quite interesting. We were talking about LinkedIn, and sitting, I think, just over 65%, if not that. But I can imagine from, you know, you were mentioning, you know, you've been in the marketing business for quite some time, for over a decade or so. I'm sure from your perspective, it's very interesting to see how the different channels have changed over the past decade or so in terms of priorities. Tell me about that.
Well, what's happened now with digital marketing really becoming very accessible. Digital marketing is most, and with that I mean social media, email marketing, and websites, and search engine optimization. These things have made marketing accessible to the small business. 15, 20 years ago, if you wanted to do marketing, you needed a big budget so that you can so that you can produce a TV ad, be in a magazine, take out a billboard. So really what this whole digital revolution has done is it's given everybody a tool to do marketing. I can now go and post something on LinkedIn, and for a minimum spend of $10 a day, I can promote this thing. So Facebook is, I think the minimum spend there is maybe 10 Rand. So everybody can now do marketing. And that is partly, I mean, that's the good news. The bad news is now everybody can also waste money on marketing, which is also happening. And so what this chart is showing you is obviously the popularity, and you can see my audience is a little B2B skewed, hence LinkedIn being above Facebook, and email and so on. But what people should not forget is the stuff further down that chart, the old school stuff, PR, flyers. I have a client now who, small business, she phoned me, she said, Bernard, I have, one of the local radio stations are running a special, Hot FM. They're putting a special out. You can have your ad on there for a fraction of what it normally costs. I want to do it. And she did it. And she's actually, as a small business owner, she's now on radio with a range of kiddies swimwear. And her sales have spiked. So, yes, digital is great, but don't forget radio. Don't forget magazines. Don't forget PR. These are typically seen as more mass market, more expensive platforms. It's very effective in raising your brand awareness. And it's often more affordable than what people think it is. So, you know, small businesses, they underinvest in the old school stuff, and they underinvest in an old school marketing plan.
Let's talk a little bit about the new school, plans that the new kids on the block are doing, where you bring in social media influencers. I mean, most people would assume that is what probably the big corporates are doing. And yes, they probably are, because you're spending a lot of money on getting people to tweet about you or to use their Instagram or whatever page they are most popular on. Is that a thing for everyone? Like, how do you decide whether, social media influencer is the way to go? And how do you even measure whether you've had an impact on that?
Well, step one is not to worry about the influencer, but to be an influencer. What I mean with that is I'll start by saying this, the cliche thing, and then I'll explain it a bit more. You need to have a brand. Okay, now what is a brand? A brand is, on the one hand, if you're a business selling to businesses, it's really your reputation. and it's your overarching point of difference, your overarching value proposition if you sell business to business. And if you sell to the consumer, the shopper on the street, Mrs. Housewife, Mr. Housewife, if that's your market, then your brand is, again, your point of difference, but it's also it's your sex appeal. It's that thing that makes you stand out, makes your brand desirable, gives you an edge, lets you feel, gives you, just makes you stand out. So before you approach an influencer, before you try and figure out which platform you should use, you should have a clear idea of what your own brand is. And that is then what you take out to the market. The fact that this is what really sets me apart. This is what I want to hang my marketing cap on. This is what I want the world to know about me. Once you are clear about that, and that is a paragraph in your marketing plan, my brand position, my brand image, my marketing, well, let's keep to the word brand because that's where it ties in. That is a paragraph in your marketing plan. And once you've got clarity on that, then you go and then you reach out to an influencer, but you need to understand, why are you doing that? Okay, I mean, it's no use reaching out to an influencer if your market isn't influencer driven. Right. My brother-in-law has a craft brewery, and I've suggested to him yesterday that he should look at targeting certain influencers, micro-influencers. I think that's when you have 500 to 1,000 followers. Yeah. So understand where do influencers and social media and all of these things, where does it fit in to an integrated plan to achieve your objective? And the objective is always brand, underpinned by the brand.
Right. In an environment right now where businesses have been affected as a result of the lockdown that we're currently in and, the pandemic, how do you see marketing activity, and as it relates to some of these channels that are on screen right now, how do you see that changing when it comes to how much money people will be willing to spend? Because I can imagine events and conferences, which is right here, probably just below 40% here, that also is going to change. It's not going
I think it's going to be replaced by webinars, that particular one, but you're right. It's much more competitive online. LinkedIn has become a lot more competitive. To get 1,000 people to view what you have posted is not so easy anymore, because every man and his dog is now using these platforms, and it does mean that you need to stand out. There's a part of marketing that is just purely about standing out. So being more controversial, being more aggressive, being more sexy, being more, you can't do marketing and be bland. You must stand out. And that's something that many businesses are very poor at. The marketing looks bad. It looks like everybody else's stuff. They have no view. They have no opinion. They are scared to raise their voice. You can't do marketing and be and fit in. Marketing is all about fitting out.
In terms of raising your voice, does that entail generating content? Like if you're in the service type industry, perhaps you have a restaurant, make an example here. Can you generate content where you're writing a small blog about, I don't know, the different types of food styles that are out there? Does that fall part of raising?
It is, but make it interesting, make it different. If I have to read another blog, make it, spice it up. So write me a blog about something. People are scared to be original. Right. Original content is what turns the dial. Why? I mean, this infographic that we're looking at now, it's original. Now I'm giving myself a pat on the back here. But this is the kind of content that you want to generate. You don't just want to generate content. You don't just want to write about you are a new restaurant that serves fantastic burgers. You want to write about you are a new restaurant, you got the biggest burger in town, or your new Kikuyu and Hadida patty will be ready for tasting on Tuesday. Yeah, that's the kind of stuff. And it's not about being fake, and it's not about but it's about being relevant and entertaining and interesting.
So now we move to the part where people are seeing the biggest frustration. And there's a lot we could discuss here. I mean, whether we're talking from a time investment point of view, from, not knowing the impact that you're having, and also follow through that consistency when it comes to, generating your content. Take me through, some of these, frustrations that people are experiencing.
Well, time is the biggest one, as you can see there, because, I mean, take your previous point. If you want to produce good content, that's going to take you some time to write something that makes sense and that's well put together. So time is the biggest issue. And time is an issue also because business owners are often not clear on why they're investing their time, where there's no thinking behind, I'm now going to produce this piece of content that will take me a while, but if I do it properly, then the result will be A, B, and C. So time is often an issue because the upside of investing my time isn't clear to them. And then quality service providers is another big one beneath that. Just to be able to work with agencies, freelancers, designers, web developers, social media managers that actually listen to you, that actually have your interests at heart. And that goes both ways, because many business owners they don't listen. They don't view these suppliers of marketing skills as experts. So it's often a battle of wills, which is an issue. ROI is also in there, return on investment, which obviously spans everything, cost, budget. So there's a lot, and I think the little round bubble top left where it says fear is actually a bigger one than it shows up there, and that is just the fear of doing marketing, the unknown, this idea that I don't want to be famous. How do I do marketing but still keep kind of behind the scenes and not raise the alarm bells or make my competition aware of me or look stupid? So there's a huge fear factor when it comes to doing marketing properly.
Right. So what I'm going to do right now is stop sharing the screen just so we can keep track of some of the questions that may be coming through for you. The one thing that I did, Bernard, as a journalist, I had to do a little bit of research on you, and it's very interesting that you used to play rugby back in the day. I'm guessing this is when you were much younger. And the one thing that you do have is a blog. It's called underdogblog.coza. I'm sure people can, go onto it right after the session and read some of the content that you've put out when it comes to marketing. But the one, blog post that you put out, this was early July, titled "Marketing as a Contact Sport," and I found that quite interesting. Talk to me about why you view it that way.
Yeah. So by the way, my rugby was never big, and I stopped playing when I was early high school. But it is a contact sport. Marketing is a contact sport because picking up the phone and speaking to your customer and saying to them, hey, I don't want to sell anything to you today, but I want to ask you some questions.
Yeah.
I want to know what you think about my business. No, your business is crap. It's a shit business. The service you're giving me is poor. That's contact. That hurts. phoning someone who's not yet buying from you and saying to them, or not necessarily just phoning them, but talking to them, walking into their office and saying, can I sit down and just ask you, why are you not using me? Why haven't you bought from me? No, I haven't bought from you because your team don't know what they're talking about. That hurts, and that's contact. So marketing is an emotional contact sport. It really, if you really do it properly and you start with step one, which is market research, and you're going to ask your customers some penetrating questions, you leave your sales pitch at home, then you'll see how quickly marketing becomes a contact sport. And the same fear that you have running onto a rugby field because now you're actually going to start getting hurt, the same fear creeps up when you actually do market research and you start saying, well, you know what? The next week we're going to make 20 calls to our 20 customers that are buying from us and 20 that are not. And we're going to ask them some very honest questions. You'll be surprised how you'll be surprised how impactful that is, A, and B, how much that then can also hurt, but in a way help you. So that's what I mean with that.
One of the questions that's come through says, is there a recipe, where or when you should start spending money on marketing as a small business?
Yes, there is a recipe. You should start immediately, okay? And I'm not joking. You must spend, you should take a pot of money, you should set it aside, you should pick a platform, call it Facebook, call it LinkedIn, and put a sizable amount of money aside. Put 5,000, 10,000, 15,000 aside and say, this is my marketing budget for the month of September or now August, and I'm going to spend this. I'm going to ask myself, what will tell me that this was a worthwhile investment or not by the end of this month or by the end of this weekend? You can spend 5,000 Rand on LinkedIn and run a promoted post for Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Question is, come Monday morning, how will you know that what you've done has been good for your business or not? So is there a recipe? Yes. The recipe starts with invest. Because that's what marketing is. It's an investment. So put down the amount of time and money that you feel is appropriate to where you are in your business, and then invest it. And ask yourself over a defined period of time whether this has done anything for your company. So it gets down to that level of simplicity and very clear thinking around what you're doing.
On that, then another one came in saying, is Bernard then saying that you should educate yourself and do it yourself instead of getting outside help? Or should you first understand it yourself and then get outside help? And should you actually go to outside people with a proposed plan?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I'm a fan of, you've got to empower yourself. Too many business owners want to outsource marketing. They think they can get somebody else in and this person is going to do it for them. And it never works like that. Ultimately, marketing is an internal business function. It's not an external function. So whether you do it for yourself now, whether you invest in finding a way, whether you figure it out for yourself now or later, bottom line is if your business one day becomes what you want it to be, which is likely a bigger business, marketing is an internal function. There sits finance, there's HR, there's sales, and there's marketing. Marketing doesn't sit in a tent in the parking lot. They sit in your business. So whether you have the time and the skill and the money to do it internally now, that's a separate question. But the long-term game is that marketing becomes an internal function of your business. You know how to do the marketing for your business. You build your brand. You're the one that measure it. Now, when you just get going and you have no cooking clue what you're doing, I would get external help, but I'll be super focused. So I will say to myself, listen, I'm going to use Facebook and or I'm going to use LinkedIn. Those are always two good places to start. And I'm really going to just focus on this platform, and where I need outside help, I'll bring it in. But long term, marketing is your responsibility as an entrepreneur, as a business owner. You gotta know how to market your own business.
Right, and I'm sure you know, a lot of our viewers can go back to the blog that I just spoke about, underdogblog.co. You actually do have a post that says no one can do your marketing for you. So I'm sure people can go back to that for a little bit more clarity. There is another one that's come in, and it says, what's your take on getting a specialist media buyer when you're an SME? Because it doesn't seem to be too complicated, but the people we speak to seem to say we should have a specialist buyer if we're investing in radio or print or even digital advertising.
Specialist media buyer. I mean, if you have a relatively substantial media budget, then yes, get a media buyer in. But I mean, the last time I used a media buyer was when I was running a big brand and the budget was huge. So I would prefer doing it as much as possible, doing it myself. And inside my business, get this, learn how to spend the money yourself. Obviously, if you are, and I don't know the size of this business, but if you are a substantial business, you've got a real pot of money that you're putting away and you need someone to really manage this for you in a very professional manner, sure, then get a media buyer. But ultimately, one shouldn't be afraid to do it yourself, to stuff it up, to learn, to sit down at the end of the week and say, okay, we spend X thousand rand on marketing. We put so much into Google ads. We put so much into some radio. We put so much in there. And by the way, by dealing directly with the media outlets, you often also get many benefits by just networking with them and being on there, building connections. So should you use a media buyer? If the budget is big, do that, but I wouldn't go there immediately. I would do it myself first if I can. That's always step one. Try and do it yourself.
Right. Are there trends out there in terms of what small businesses are engaging in when it comes to marketing? I mean, from your learnings and the people you're talking to, do you find that there tends to be some trends out there that people can keep an eye on?
Trends. I believe there's a trend towards doing marketing experiments. Okay. So instead, create an experiment for yourself.
Yeah.
Okay? And an experiment is to say, I'm going to try this. It's going to start on Monday. It's going to end on Friday. I'm going to really try and see if this works. That's an experiment. So I think, there's for me a trend towards experimentation, and experimentation is intentional. It's not just, oh, well, let's try Facebook for a month. No, it didn't work. That's not an experiment. An experiment is, we tried Facebook. This is what we did. This is what we said. This is how we promoted it. This is kind of the results we got, and these are our learnings. An experiment always ends with some learnings. These learnings you then plow back into your next experiment. So run experiments with your marketing. Run an experiment with your media buying. I want to just go back there. I mean, if I say always do it yourself, it's not as simple as that. But run an experiment and say, next month we are using a media buyer, and the month after that we're not using a media buyer. It's important for me, that's why I'm going back. Where many businesses are doing it themselves and it is a total disaster is graphic design. If you go back to my infographic, I use the professional designer to help me make that thing look the way it does. Yeah. So it's often not a good idea to do everything yourself, especially when it comes to the basics of just designing and writing about the brand. But experimentation is for me a trend.
Right. The next question says, you mentioned radio. What are your thoughts about community radio stations?
Well, I mean, again, I would run an experiment. I think they are potential gold. It's a potential opportunity to use community radio. Look beyond the obvious suspects. and see what's available. I mean, Hot FM, which is the one I referred to earlier, is kind of a community radio station, and it's got a loyal following. So the question is always the big issue for many small businesses is achieving what you call awareness, or reaching your market, but getting everybody to know that at least you've opened shop, you're around. So how do I, as a small business sitting in my home office, get the world to know that I'm around? That's the issue. Now, if you're a big company, what do? You take a big budget, you make a TV ad, you put it on YouTube, you put it on Sunday night when it's idols, and everybody suddenly knows you're around and your problem has been fixed. What do you do when you're a small business and you want to achieve awareness and you don't have budget? That's the question. And so you want to look at which tools are going to give me the greatest reach. And there you're going to struggle to beat radio. You're going to struggle to beat something like just a pure Facebook post that you boost. You're going to struggle beating something like writing a good piece of content that targets a keyword that is very often searched for, and getting that optimized and posted onto your website. These are things that gives you, call it marketing muscle. It gives you awareness and reach, whereas just posting something gives you zero reach. Just being arbitrary about your marketing gives you zero reach. So that's the challenge. How do you achieve reach without a big budget?
Yeah. The next one says, how important are testimonials and what role do testimonials play in marketing? And I'm sure people have seen many of these things on websites or company websites, etc.
Yeah, so testimonial. What is a testimonial? A testimonial in a marketing environment or in a business environment, testimonial gives you credibility. So the real question is, what value, how important is credibility?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the actual question. Credibility is step one. If you're not credible, you're not a business. So doing everything in your power to look credible is table stakes in business. So you want to put down the money and get yourself a good website up, a good logo, a few testimonials, even if those are from people that you help them on a zero cost basis, only to get the testimonial. But you want to do everything in your ability to look credible. Only once you've established credibility, this person can do what they say they're doing. This person, the product is actually good and delivers. Once you've established credibility, you are 70% there. So testimonials, case studies, good design, good writing, these are tick box exercises, and just making sure you look credible. And especially in today's age where anybody can put up a business in an afternoon. How do I know you're the real deal? So very important is the short answer.
Do surveys work in terms of getting an idea from your targeted audience as to whether you're giving them what they want, i.e. in the form of the service or the product? Because I mean, there's so many kind of, survey platforms out there. There's Typeform, there's SurveyMonkey. Do those work? And can you get the right kind of feedback that you may be looking for?
I think so you're going to struggle. I think step one, if you want to have real answers from your customers or your prospective customers, go and talk to them.
Yeah.
This is, again, marketing being a contact sport. Pick up the phone someone and say to them, I want to ask you some honest questions. Very few people are going to say to you, no, I don't have time for some honest questions. Thank you, goodbye. That doesn't happen. People listen to you. They're, okay, I'll give you some of my time and I'll answer your honest questions and I'll give you honest answers. So sending out a questionnaire into the world out there and hoping to get feedback, trust me, that's how I got 102 responses on my survey, and it took me 6 months, and it took me a lot of arse licking, and I eventually managed to get it, and I sent it out to people that I know personally, and I really followed up with them. So you're going to struggle. I would pick up the phone and I would have my 2 or 3 questions on a piece of paper and I'll ask them.
Yeah. The next one says, which brand do you admire in terms of marketing being done in South Africa and why?
Well, that's an easy-ish question. I mean, which brand do I admire in terms of marketing in South Africa? I'm trying to think out loud now because nothing pops up immediately. But whilst that simmers, I mean, the real question is how many small and medium-sized businesses do fantastic marketing? That's a much more interesting question. I can say to you, Nando's does fantastic marketing. I could tell you that, but that's boring. We all know that. That's not the stuff the question is who out there with a really tight marketing budget, a smallish team, bringing out that's 2 years old in their business, 3 years, 4 years old. Which of them, are there any of them out there that I could say, wow, you got to check these guys, they're doing something right? And then you can go even more difficult and say, are there any companies selling to other companies, B2B? I mean, B2C, I've got a new range of socks out. There's some sexy stuff happening out there. There's some interesting marketing on Instagram. But which business, are there B2B marketing case studies within this small, medium-sized environment that's really interesting? Yeah. That's I think, a more interesting question, and one which I would probably have some views about. But yeah, it's easy to do. It's easy to say, and it's Nando's or whatever.
Yeah, I see someone suggesting that definitely Nando's.
Yeah, sure, but is Nando's outselling Kentucky? No. Is Kentucky more boring? Yes. What does Kentucky do? They've got one billboard up here by the corner where I live with a huge burger, and whenever I see the damn thing, my mouth salivates. Is it sexy? No. Is it? Do I talk to my family and pass on the video on WhatsApp? No. So there's a difference between marketing that works and marketing that is talked about. I'm more interested in who's putting out marketing, and at the end of the month they look at their results and they say, yeah, there are the results, and our money is looking good and our competition is begging us to stop. That's really what's interesting.
Over the past 45 minutes, you and I have been talking about small businesses which either are in the service or product type industry when it comes to what they do. But then marketing can also be self-marketing. If you're trying to be that micro-influencer we were talking about a little bit earlier on, does that marketing strategy change, or is it slightly different, especially when it comes to content generation? Because this is what we want influencers to do,
it's
right?
It's much easier. If you are a single person, let's say you are recently retrenched. COVID has run its course through your company. You've been kicked out. You're sitting at your house not knowing what to do with yourself. There's a lot that you can do by purely being an individual offering his or her services. And the trick here is very simple. Focus on you as the brand, you being your name, your face. People are obsessed with starting companies. So what do? They start there. They say, oh, shucks, I've recently been retrenched, or I'm now starting my own business. I'm calling it XYZ Pty Limited, and here's my logo, and here's my website. Don't do any of that. When you want to start your own business, you are the business. You are the brand. So what do? You need to take the very brave and very scary step of putting yourself out there. So you don't need a website. Your Facebook page or your LinkedIn page or your Instagram page or whatever page, your TikTok account, these things are all good enough. You don't need a company website. You do not need a logo. You do not need a company name. You just need to be you. And that is by far the most effective marketing strategy for an individual. It's also by far the scariest because you are going to put your own name up there and you're going to get your brother-in-law phoning you saying to you, are you trying to be famous, or what the hell are you? You're going to feel funny about it because it's very, very vulnerable. You're making yourself vulnerable. But by doing it, you are giving yourself the most potent marketing benefit there is, and that is your own brand identity. Is you are unique. I mean, you are unique by definition of being a person on this planet. So just be yourself, and you are going to stand out.
So when we were saying that for, a business that's either in service or product, when you're trying to get, surveys out there to get some feedback, you said pick up the phone, call your customers or your clients, ask them the questions and be prepared to hear the tough answers. In the case of somebody who is generating their own content, how do you then get feedback? Do you then use the survey thing where you upload a survey and people click or select an option?
Look at engagement. People say to you, your stuff is good or bad. You get that feedback quite quickly.
Yes.
And if you put up good stuff, you need to spend money and promote it. There's no such thing as free airtime in this world. So there's no such thing as free marketing. Let's get that clear. Marketing costs money like any other thing that should deliver value. There's money attached to it.
We've got about 10 minutes. The one thing I want to do, and I'm going to share my screen again, because you and I, prior to starting the webinar, we were discussing something that I thought was really cool, which is the Firejuice SME survey results, which now looking at
the raw results, yes. And we should share that with those that are in the session. But that's essentially the feedback that's in the infographic. This is the kind of raw background info to it.
Yeah. And the cool part about this is that the participants can play around. They can decide whether they want to look at the results coming out of the small businesses, medium, and then also have a look at the type of business, whether it's business to business, business to customer. This is actually quite interesting. So we'll put the link out so people can have a look in depthly with regards to some of the responses that you got here.
Yes. Absolutely. I think this is a really cool way of presenting it. So soon put it out.
The one thing I was going to ask, Bernard, I mean, you got the results for this particular survey. At what point are you going to go back to the market and perhaps get a bigger sample size?
And that's why surveys are difficult. No, I'd like to do this every 2 years or so. My aim is to repeat this every second year, and find other ways also of getting feedback and answers, because people are busy, and the small business owner is especially busy, and getting him to fill in the surveys, it's not easy.
Right. Do you think that the results, I mean, everyone's worried about the economy and where we may be. And I'm not sure how, in depth you follow, the business news out there. Everyone's talking about V shapes and U shapes when it comes to the economic recovery. The other one that made me think, yesterday, someone mentioned a square root shape. So if you think of, if you think of the symbol for a square root, where, it goes down, it goes up with some recovery, and then it just plateaus, we might see that in the South African economy, which is actually terrible when you think about it. You coming back in 2 years to do this, would it give you enough information, having looked at where we are right now, August 19th, we're about halfway through. 2 years from now, look at the year 2022. Do you believe you'll have much more rich information in terms of how companies have spent in terms of marketing, whether they reduced budget or increased budget? And I suppose how confident they were when it comes to that, their marketing plan or outsourcing certain things?
Well, I certainly hope so. What I will also say is that if you are a business and you're in a downward spiral, or in an economy that is spiraling downwards and the market is tough and, it's just a general recession. If you're a small or a medium-sized business operating in that environment, that's essentially all of us, the macro environment does not have to determine your personal business success. So you can be insanely successful whilst all the news you read in the paper is suicidally depressing. Yeah. So by having a clear value proposition, by understanding who your target market is, by offering them excellent customer service, by making sure your products or your services are not cheap, because that's a mistake, but priced to reflect the value that you deliver, by being in touch with your customers through the odd phone call and the contact that can hurt you. By doing these things, by running little marketing experiments, by spending some money on marketing and having a plan and looking at the results and plowing the learnings back into your business, by doing these things, you can be a successful business in a very depressing environment. And I see that. I mean, there's now one of our clients is currently, their previous LinkedIn post was about taking business away from a competitor in Australia. The LinkedIn post before that was them exporting a product to Canada. We've now helped them, the next post that's up now, they use LinkedIn quite aggressively, is of them exporting a product to Russia. This is a medium-sized business that's 80 years old, fourth generation owner managed. You don't read about these guys in the newspaper. They're operating in an economy where everybody has written it off, and yet these guys are making money. So don't let yourself be pulled down by what you read in the paper. And my closing thought is that whether it's a V or a U or a square or a what shape, you determine the own shape of your business.
Yeah. Talk to me a little bit, we've got about 3.5 minutes. The relationship that you have when it comes to your network of the freelancers and the small agencies that are helping you with your copywriting, your social media.
Thanks, because you remind me, I must mention Ilse, who designed my infographic. Her business is called, what is it called? Open that thing again. Let's look at the bottom of the infographic.
Let me just
visual raw, but let's just show it to everyone. She designed this for me kindly. Yeah, it's right at the bottom. Visualraw.co.za. So she's a great designer. You can ask her for the Bernard package, because I helped her put together a package, and she designed this for me. I try and work with professional people. I try and work with people that at least have had some big agency experience, so they know what it's about at a certain high level, and then we deal with it. I have a designer and a web developer and a copywriter and a this and a that I'm connected with, and we keep it. Firejuice is not an agency. Firejuice is purely a consulting business, using these people then to help with the implementation.
Is there, I suppose, a decent budget for all these people that you've just mentioned, especially if you're on the side where you do want to generate some kind of content, you do want to be on social media? Is there a figure, or you just find that out when you do the first consultation to think about what they can do?
I think give them a figure. The figure is, say to them, I want to do X, Y, Z, and I've got 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 or 200,000 Rand, and then see what comes. People are reluctant to give a budget. You must give a budget. You must sit down and say, I want to build a new website. How much is this going to be how much value will a great looking website add to my business? No, it's going to, over the next 5 years, it's going to add 5 million Rand in value to my business by just looking great online. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to put a website brief out, and I'm actually going to include a budget in there, and it's going to say I'm willing to spend 100,000 Rand on my new website. So give your outside freelancer supplier agency a budget, for heaven's sake. This thing of we'll wait for you to quote is nonsense. Tell them what you want to pay for it.
All right, so we've got a minute and a half. So let's encapsulate all of this that we've just discussed. What should businesses be thinking about right now? Because you have either just come back on stream now that we are at level 2, or you've just come back maybe a couple of levels ago and you're rethinking the way you want to execute things, because prior to COVID, everybody had different plans, and those plans have either been derailed or you might have to adjust. What should businesses be thinking about?
Well, you got to think about your marketing, because the game has changed. The days of driving around and selling to people like they did in the 1920s on the beach boardwalk is over. You need to have a very clear brand out there, and you need to make sure you're hitting the high notes and getting your customers to see you, and you need to get the inquiries coming in, and you need to pick up the sales discussion way further down from what you used to. You must market your business much better. It's time to think very, very strategically about your marketing.
All right, Bernard, thank you so much for your time. That's Bernard Jansen, is the founder of Firejuice. The playback facility for this recording will be available afterwards, and then we'll also be posting the links on social media where you can have a look at those stats, the survey results, and also the link where you can play around with some of those figures. That was quite a fun thing for me to do this morning. So you'll be able to do that. Bernard, thank you so much for your time, and thank you to those who asked your questions and participated.
Thank you, Nastassia. And
Awesome.
thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Goodbye.